Hey, Brendan, welcome to the program.
Hey, Matt, thanks for having me.
We were just chatting before we hit record. This is the first time we've met. I've seen you, maybe chatted with you through YouTube's chat box, but other than that, that's a pleasure to finally connect and have you on. You you do a lot of things. We're going to get into it, but your YouTube channel, just so I can call it out at the top of the show and get everybody subscribing to your channel as well. It's youtube.com/@BrendanO'ConnellWP. I have that correct? Correct?
Yep.
You cover a lot of brick stuff, other WordPress tutorials. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. Your full-time job is at an agency. Then you also do your own consultancy. You have your own practice on the side. We're going to chat all about that. How long have you been doing this WordPress thing?
Yeah, so I've been a WordPress user sort of full-time, I guess, since about 2017. Dabbled in it a little bit before that and just really enjoyed the whole experience. Learned a lot. There's so many great people in this space to learn from. And the agency I work at is actually pre-WordPress. So they've been around for like 25 years and didn't use that for a long time. I've sort of helped them transition to using WordPress full-time. So that's sort of what I've been doing.
Were they using like a homegrown CMS, or were they using another platform for sites?
They're using something they built on Ruby on Rails that is very much on Rails, so to speak, in the sense that there's like a lot of guardrails built in. So the notion of working with WordPress was kind of off the table because it was just too much freedom for the clients that we wanted to serve, I guess.
Yeah. Well, back in my day, before I got my experience with WordPress, I was working at an ISP, Internet Service Provider, and we purchased another ISP. They had a web development firm attached to it, and they were using their own, this is many, many years ago, they were using their own homegrown CMS called Squirrel. It was a play on SQL and some of the terminology around it that the developers built, but it was very much a homegrown system. What type of sites are you building at the agency? Is it are they still all 100% now on WordPress, or are they still transitioning the Rails stuff? What does that client look like at the agency day job?
Yeah, so I mean, we have a couple hundred active clients, and some of them have been around since, as I said, pre-WordPress. You know, they've had retheming done on the sites and things like that. So probably about half of the clients are still on that, and then the other half are on WordPress. And so, you know, it's a slow transition. There's a lot going on there, and of course, we have new projects coming in all the time. But the typical client is honestly probably just a small business client that is under 20 employees total. We have a good number of those. I would say also that because we're in a fairly small town in California, not in LA, but in the peripheries, basically, that we have a lot of clients that are actual like government service providers, city projects that happen. So we do have, there's an ability to sort of get a leg into the clients that have, I guess higher budgets too, but also, more importantly, have clients in there, working in the site and trying to build stuff in a very long-term manner. So a lot of, like the local trash company, and then they sponsor events, and then you get those sites too. And so you build a network within your local community. I think that's sort of overlooked these days, that everyone wants to like work overseas and, all that stuff, which is, there's merit to that. But yeah, we've had good success working with a lot of local businesses.
Do you find yourself looking for the same type of client, smaller client for your own consultancy, your own practice? How do you figure out which client you'd like to take on for that side of the house?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question because it's always sort of a gamble that you make when you're taking on more and more complex projects, especially, I mean, right now I just do this by myself, but I have people I can lean on. But the fact of the matter is that, do you want to pay your bills doing a lot of really complex projects, or do you want to have more reliable, like steady income that's maybe smaller projects? There's merit to that. What do I prefer? I'm here to grow. I'd like to learn more. I'd like to work on projects that have higher stakes, right? But I can totally see the merit in not always pursuing that.
Yeah. I just did a live stream with Mark Szymanski, and we were talking about like the types of clients, because he and I, he's always chatting me up about stuff about, running the agency, running the business. And I know there's always he's always putting out a lot of content on the page builder side, like when to use bricks. And I know there's always a constant tug of war happening with like, hey, WordPress core, like site editor, Gutenberg, block editor, versus fill in the blank with your favorite page builder, whether it's Bricks, Elementor, Beaver Builder, Divi. There's always that constant discussion or debate happening, which is cool. But sometimes, like at the end of the day, the client just wants the solution. Like there's clients out there. I don't care what you build it on. Just I need you to solve my problem, and that can range pretty greatly in the agency space. And what Mark and I talked about is like, hey, maybe you just want to stay like what I'll call like freelancer level. That doesn't even mean like small budgets. It just means I just want to be able to maintain a stable of customers that I don't need to hire people. I don't need to grow a team. I don't need to be doing payroll and increasing my insurances and getting office space. Like I just want to stay in this lane, which means I might be capped revenue wise, but that doesn't mean like you're getting small projects.
It doesn't mean you can't grow in the future.
Correct.
Too. If you're building up a steady supply of recurring business, you have happy clients, they're starting to refer, you can always scale later.
Yeah. Do you for your own stuff, do you use bricks, or I guess at the agency and your stuff, do you use bricks in both places?
I do, yeah. I sort of came to bricks personally and brought it to the agency and proposed that we started using that. So that it was a hard sell, and it took me probably a year just to convince them. Not that we were super happy with Divi, although Divi will always have a soft spot in my heart. It was the first page builder I really fell in love with, and saw the vision, because I don't really come from a strong, I'm not a coder by training necessarily. It's sort of I've thrown into the gauntlet. So, but I've really taken to bricks, and I really saw the vision of the workflow for me, and I just had to get them on board, and so far it's been a great experience.
I'd imagine, this is no offense to you, but I imagine that if they built something homegrown with Ruby on Rails, that they have more like hardcore developers on the team that built that. And then when you bring in a tool like this, they're like, no, we want to write lines of code to get the job done. Did that happen? Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's why just moving to WordPress was not even on the table for many years, So I would say getting them on board with that was a challenge for sure.
Yeah.
But I think they have seen the vision that, we have a certain set of tool set that we use now, and the kind of projects we can build are just a lot better, and they can scale better, and it's easier for clients to edit at the end of the day.
Putting bricks aside, or putting a page builder aside, did you have to sell them on the idea of WordPress? And if so, what was your sales pitch to the team?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. And it was kind of a few years ago now at this point, but a lot of it's driven by the feedback from clients. We were not in the business of like locking sites away from clients. And I do appreciate that WordPress has that sort of open source mentality. There's so many plugins and themes, but that was a downside for many years because there's just too many options. And that's probably still the case. There's how many themes, right? But was it a hard sell for WordPress? I think, yes, security was always a concern too, client editing capabilities. But at the end of the day, clients would come to us and say, well, do you guys build with WordPress? And we did, but not in the same scalable way. So I think we just thought anyone can tell you, right, how much WordPress content there is, right? There's so much out there. There's so much data portability, all these things I think that were important to clients.
Yeah. When you switched over from like moving from Divi to Bricks, what did you have how did you introduce that to the customer? Because that's always one of the issues I have when I ran an agency. It wasn't really until like the back half of my time there where I started using, again, it's like years ago. So at the time it was like Beaver Builder. It was the cleanest, best approach that I could see at the time for a page builder tool. And kudos to them. They're still doing their thing. Like they still have a customer base. If I were to ever go back into using a page builder full time, that's probably the one that I would pick because I feel most comfortable with them and they seem like good people and they're still in business. But the idea was,
And they're focused on the agency too.
and they're focused on the and they're focused on the agency. But the issue was like, man, I couldn't. There was no way I could use a page builder on a big, like one of our big like enterprise-y clients, because there's just too much risk with, I don't know, all of a sudden I have to tell them, look, the whole site is built on Beaver Builder, and if something ever changed with Beaver Builder, they would look at me and go, wait a minute, you use that tool to build this? And I didn't want them ever to like, I didn't want to ever have to be in that scenario. So everything was more, air quotes, hand built, more hand coded traditionally for my bigger clients. But for the customers who are like, price point and speed is our most important aspect of this project, okay, bring in the page builder. But the customers that wanted more stuff, had more functionality, it was like, nope, you got a developer and a designer attached to this project as a project manager. This is a full-scale thing. We're talking 120 days to roll out whatever it was whatever it was we were building for them. That's a long way of getting to the question, which was, did you ever have that? What was that leap like for you, Divi to bricks? And did you have to have those conversations with customers, or did it just get smoothed over as you maybe transitioned into a new project?
Yeah, I would say mostly clients don't even know what page builder they're using half the time, what site, when they log into their site. We tell them, we can give them instructions on it, all that stuff, but the way our clients are editing sites is usually in custom fields or with Gutenberg. So they're not really in the bricks editor that much. Now we do have tools that allow them to do that, but I think there's a broader conversation, right, to be had about, as an agency, clients come to us and they trust us whatever tool we use. I think at the end of the day, as long as we're getting the job done for them. Now there's a even broader conversation to be had about using core, staying close to core, using, custom blocks and custom themes for those types of clients. And that is something that I'm learning more about for sure, especially with the precarity of page builders, as you mentioned. I mean, I'm all in with bricks, right? I'm here to, sell everyone right on the vision. That being said, there was a huge hack earlier this year. There have been page builders, as we all know, that come and go. So those are real thoughts I have to have for sure.
Yeah. Years ago, Divi was notorious, and I don't fault them for this. Like a lot of the stuff that I try to see like both sides of the discussion, because even like Gutenberg and site editor and all the stuff happening with WordPress this is all like iterative, and it's happening. Like it is getting better. It's not like you haven't seen an update happen in 6 months. Every week, if not every day, there's like something new that's coming and iterating, and that's largely how software works. Again, you look at the iPhone. Every year they come out with a new iPhone, and you're just like, it's just like 5% better, 10% better than the last one. You're not like blown away by any change that they're making. But if you looked at the iPhone from 5 years ago, you'd be like, oh, wow, there's a lot of stuff changed here. I feel like that's the same way that all software works. We're slowly getting these updates. But Divi was notorious for, if you ever shut off Divi, it was just short codes everywhere. And there was no way you couldn't do anything with it. It's just, you weren't migrating away from that. You were stuck in it. And if you ever shut it off, your site was basically dismantled, and then you had to like rebuild from the ground up. I assume they've getting better. I'm assuming all these page builders are getting better. I know with Gutenberg, you can take the HTML of the block and bring that over to another platform. If you were to ever like leave WordPress, at least you had that at the core level, but customers might want to be bought into the WordPress experience, because they might look at it and say, hey, if we ever leave you as an agency or as a freelancer, we want that portability. Like, we don't want that because we want to be able to take this somewhere else. And I guess you don't want to get caught flat-footed not communicating that to the customer, if that makes sense. Like, you don't want to be the one that's like, oh yeah, I built you this thing, and then they leave, and then you don't have a referral anymore because you're like, God, Brendan, why did you build it with this? Because we can't move it somewhere else.
And that gets back to why I tried to get people at my company to move to WordPress, right? Because that is a real conversation that happens for sure.
Yeah.
And same with like Webflow. I mean, we got people that sometimes want a Webflow site, and that's a conversation we have to have. Is like, and same with Wix and Squarespace. Look, your data is there. if you ever want to move, you're rebuilding every single thing.
Yeah.
So
Do you have a lot of requests for Webflow at the agency?
not a lot.
No.
But that might be just the market we're in too. I mean, it could be our reputation too. Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, there's all things that factor there.
One of the interesting things that I'm always always trying to monitor from like a consumer's perspective is all these like add-ons and third-party softwares already exist for Bricks, and Bricks is still growing itself. Like, at what point will you just see Bricks starting to absorb all of these add-ons that are largely features of Bricks, and Bricks just like, oh, you know what, we're going to do it now. I mean, just like we've seen with WordPress and Jetpack, right?
Yeah.
Same thing.
I think that's the business model in WordPress.
Yeah.
For the most part, let people iterate in the third-party communities and subsume it, which is fine. Bricks does the same thing. Recently they added a variable manager. They added, several different things that third party has already had, and that's good, I think.
Do you see what is there a general feeling in the air about that? Like, sort of like when Jetpack releases something, people are like, oh God, you're putting out of business these other 3 small like plugin providers. Is it a positive feeling in the Bricks space when that happens? Is there a communication from Bricks, the mothership, to the third party ecosystem that you've noticed?
I think there is conversation between some of the third party plugin developers and Bricks leadership. I think they're kept to. I don't think that there's anything not transparent about it. I think they just know the right questions to ask. And I think, for example, I'll give one, the advanced themer add-on. He was working on multi-select in the panel, which actually Gutenberg has, where you can select multiple elements in the structure panel and delete or modify them how you want, not just element by element. Bricks has announced they're working on that. So I think he was, disappointed, right, that he had probably done half the work for it, only to hear that Bricks themselves were working on it. So that's a real concern, right? Because he's one of our most talented developers in the community. Shout out to Maxime of Advanced Themer.
I mean, it happened with Elementor. I'm sure you've seen it with probably Divi, and obviously it happened with core WordPress, Jetpack, and other plugins that are out there. But certainly with Elementor, once they were starting to skyrocket, it took a couple of years before I started to see this add-on ecosystem happening, and it just seemed like out of nowhere, like, bam, here's Bricks, and then here's like this third-party community, which I guess makes sense because everyone saw how fast it happened, like how fast you could grow an add-on ecosystem with Elementor and Cadence and all these other themes, Generate Press, of course, Studio Press from back in the day. Yeah, I think a lot of people just saw the opportunity really quick.
And they are filling it. They are filling important gaps that Bricks hasn't met. So, or at least they're pushing the boundaries of what we expect as a community, which I think is good. I think it's sort of that healthy competition within the Bricks community that we all love within WordPress that keeps people on their toes, keeps people iterating and innovating. So I see it as a positive, and I hope that third-party developers see their work that inspires Bricks, the core of Bricks, to get better. I would see that as a positive for the whole community.
One of the things that I've talked about publicly before is I feel like folks will jump pretty quickly, like jump off their tool of choice for something cheaper with 1 or 2 more features. Maybe it's not happening as much these days, but man, I feel like over the last couple of years, it was just like, man, new thing, Oxygen's out. Let's jump to this. Breakdance thing's out. Let's dance over that direction. Here comes Bricks. Let's get that too. I feel like there was a lot of freelancers or agencies that weren't really investing in the tool themselves to like let these things mature. Like you bought it, buy into it, and keep investing in them so that they survive. But then also, like, you must be setting up a bird's nest of a system to support in your own business. Like 6 customers over here have this tool, 8 customers over there have that tool, and now you're on to this new thing. That's just my general sentiment, no direct question, but have you observed that at all? Do you have any feelings on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Because, I mean, you brought up Beaver Builder in that example earlier, and I think a lot of people have been with them. I think they just had their 10-year anniversary, maybe more. That's a stable builder to use at this point, right? I mean, like that's something that hasn't gone out of business. And so I think I think there's something to that. Like having too many things that we're learning, there's always going to be something new popping up. Absolutely. And I fall prey to that too, unfortunately. I'm really trying not to do that. And part of that is me actually jumping into core WordPress, into Gutenberg, and just building layouts, because I think not enough people are just going in there and seeing, like you talked about, some of those improvements, some of those small improvements. We see the preview of 6.6 coming. There's a lot of stuff that's improving, and I am making a concerted effort myself to like stay on top of that best I can. You know, I only have so much time in the day, but not enough people are just thinking about, I think, yeah, you're right. It's going from builder to builder is not the way to go. You need to develop a solid workflow with a standardized set of tools. And that might be closer aligned to core than a lot of people think.
Yeah. Do you have a set of criteria? It's probably way too, you probably don't even want to think about this, but I'll ask it anyway. Do you have a certain set of criteria on how you might evaluate switching to a new page builder? Is there something like it must do to be good enough for you to say, okay, this is why I would make the leap?
Yeah, I think all the things that drew me to Bricks are the things that are keeping me with a more advanced page builder. You get a section element right out of the box. I can use a CSS framework and speed up my workflow tremendously there. And I can use dynamic data in a way that is just so straightforward and easy. It's just right in the builder. I can build nested query loops. That is a tremendous power, I think, to have at your fingertips. And you can build a lot of this stuff in core. It requires more coding. There's no doubt about it.
The debate on like using, bricks versus, or I guess I say bricks because your specialty is in bricks, but I guess it could go for, whatever, any page builder that you pick.
I'm builder agnostic though, at the end of the day. Like I like a good tool that gets out of my way and lets me build correctly.
Yeah. On the WordPress side, I'm of the mindset of saying like, hey, there's no need for page builders to try to influence core WordPress, because I think a healthy third-party ecosystem is already a victory for WordPress. In other words, like if you have the choice to go and get a third-party tool. So if you don't like the Gutenberg side of it or the site editor side of it, yes, you do have a choice of going to pick any of these page builders, to get the job done. I don't see the need to maybe say one is better than the other. And it happens from like both camps. Well, Gutenberg says you should be doing, or the core team says you should be doing it this way. And then Elementor or Bricks might be saying, well, no, WordPress should be doing it this way. I think the victory is WordPress continues to succeed no matter which tool that you pick. Do you feel the same way? Like, do you feel like by having any tool, WordPress still wins? Or do you ever think like WordPress might not win because of all the fragmented experiences that are out there?
That's a great, important question. I think WordPress is going to do fine. I think they've proved themselves to be able to carry this project. I have hopes for the block editor, and it will. I assume it can only improve. Right? It's now. I am concerned about the fragmentation even within certain page builder communities. You got back to how many third-party plugins exist for some page builders. It becomes very overwhelming. And then you get someone like Elementor who could easily threaten to leave WordPress and take a significant chunk of web traffic with them.
Yeah.
Those are concerns I'm sure that people at Core have already. And I'm sure they're thinking about this much longer term than me.
It would be interesting to see, especially now that Elementor is in hosting, right? And they have hosting. One of the biggest reasons why I think tools like Wix and Squarespace might still be recommended from people who build WordPress sites. In other words, oh, my neighbor's cousin came over and said, can you build me a WordPress website? And you're like, no, I don't want to do this, not for you, but go check out maybe Wix and Squarespace because it's a much easier thing. Because in the back of your head, you're knowing, oh God, this person's they're never going to figure out WordPress. But Elementor, and I'd even say web host, like vanilla web hosts, have the ability to shape that initial onboarding experience that could make it easier for WordPress for those types of users. Like instead of recommending them go to Squarespace and Wix, maybe we should focus on having Elementor or Bluehost come up with an affordable way to onboard, customers and make their life easier.
And this, to my understanding, this is basically what WordPress.com is doing.
Right? WordPress.com. Yeah. Yep.
Where they're trying to give you a sort of guardrail approach to WordPress, which is kind of an interesting, ironic case where you're putting all these limitations on. I wouldn't say that's limitations, right? But it's a concierge experience where you need to give people onboarding into WordPress. If you throw them directly into it, look, lately I've been going to a lot of WordPress meetups to hear what people are struggling with. There's so many of these WordPress meetups. Highly recommend you guys go to those if you're listening to this. There's a lot of really cool stuff, and you learn about what people are struggling with. And it's so tough. Like everyone's using a different page builder. Everyone has a different plugin stack. It can get complicated. And the people that are doing those meetups are doing it for free, and they're all experts, just helping people basically onboard into WordPress. So it makes sense that the hosting companies want to do that. We need more of that, or we're going to lose more market share to Wix and Squarespace.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just having this conversation earlier today. It's a complicated situation to be in. So like Bluehost, who's one of our sponsors here at the WP Minute, I think a lot of professionals, I've had these conversations with them before. I think you'd have a lot of professionals say, oh, $5 a month hosting. I'll never use that. Like I would never recommend that kind of plan. That's fine, but it's there for a reason, because the customer who wants to pay for that is also the customer who would say, I'm not going to spend more than $100 a year for my website. And then the only alternative is you will lose them from the WordPress ecosystem. They will go to a Wix or a Squarespace. Don't go to this $5 a month shared hosting account. Go to this like Wix. Why? Keep them in the WordPress ecosystem. It's a tough situation to like prop up. I can understand like shared hosting, but also at the same time, that would keep people in the WordPress space. Sure, their tools have to be good. Like their onboarding has to be good. I think Bluehost does a good job with it, but
this is interesting because like the more you learn about it, the deeper you get in, the more complex, the more convoluted it becomes. And it's the people that have been doing it for years and years. It's sort of their duty to shepherd people along, I think. And that's sort of the idea behind my YouTube channel, where I basically started it because I couldn't find videos on how to do certain things. So I just did it and recorded it, threw it out there, because I've learned so much stuff from other people, and that's the only way we can grow this community. So
yeah, it's a perfect segue, because I was just about to ask you about the YouTube channel. What are the goals? Content creator of the year? What are we going for? What's the goals for the YouTube channel? What are your expectations?
Yeah, well, if anyone's watched my content, I'm sorry. It's not the best produced content. I don't spend a lot of time editing it and perfecting it. It's me raw. So, people have resonated with that a bit. I'm not trying to monetize it or anything like that. It's all pretty straightforward, just tutorials, maybe do some commentary on WordPress stuff. This is part of why I'm appearing on this podcast with you, Matt. So thank you for having me, is to learn more about this, learn more what people are doing, what their pain points are, how we can all get better.
Yeah. I know, again, Mark Szymanski really pushing hard into YouTube, doing a lot of live stream. He'll live stream anything, Mark will. And I know he's got the new Bridge Builder series that he's working on as well. Do you have any future plans to do like community or like standalone podcasts? Any thoughts on that as a content creator?
It's something I've thought about. I'm open to ideas. I try to do too many things already, so I need someone to sort of guide me. So that's why I'm here.
Yeah.
I need all the advice I can get.
Well, let's see. You work for an agency, then you have your own practice, and you're a content creator. I mean, you're pretty filled up.
It's a busy life. I enjoy it, and I'm trying also not to do too many things at once, because I struggle with that. I try to, just build a bunch of different things at once, and they all suffer. So
yeah,
that's been my New Year's resolution this year, and I've been consistent on the YouTube channel. I've seen like pretty good growth on it, and I've gotten some actual projects out of it from viewers. So, I would say it's sort of paid for itself already, because I've made some thousands of dollars off of it. So thank you to my amazing viewers who saw something in me too.
Yeah. It's what I've always said about podcast thing as somebody who spent, I've been podcasting for over a decade, but then I worked as a career in the podcast space for almost 3 years. And when I worked at a podcast hosting company. So when customers would ask me like, hey, I want to start a podcast, I want to monetize it, I want to be whatever favorite podcaster, I want to be the Joe Rogan of podcasting. It's like, okay, well, you also have to remember he was on television for like 30 years and he was a comedian. So then that sort of helped boost his wherewithal in podcasting pretty quick. But the idea is podcasting or just getting this content out there doesn't always have to be like, I need to get X amount of views to get X amount of sponsorship, because you're creating this like surface luck area. So like you, it's like, hey, I'm not monetizing it. I don't have a paid community right now, but I got customers from it, which is like the stuff you can't measure it. It's not like something you can be like, oh, what's the ROI on this stuff? It could be nothing. It could be $100,000.
I appreciate that. I suggest everyone do that too, because I think everyone's got something to share. You should put yourself out there more. It's very easy to just sit behind our screens and just type, but just get out there.
For the next 6 months throughout the year, do you have an outlook for WordPress? What are you excited for? What are you excited to see happen throughout the summer, throughout the rest of the year in WordPress, be it WordPress or Bricks or anything in the tech space?
Yeah, I think there's a change within websites. I think a little bit within particularly WordPress. We're seeing more what I call components or partially synced patterns. Those are coming to core. Those are really going to be game changers for people, I think. People don't want to put a lot of thought into some parts of just like, I want to just get my layouts out, but I don't want to have to spend an arm and a leg. So I think that's really cool. Componentizing parts of web design. We already see that in the SaaS world, of course, but doing that within WordPress is really cool. Excited about that. I'm excited about custom blocks in general. I've been, as I said, diving into Gutenberg. I purchased PineGrow, which is a great little plugin for making custom blocks, and just teaching myself about the core more of it, because I've been building on top of WordPress for so long, and figure it's time to learn more about that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, as I was thinking about the partially sync pattern. Is it sync pattern? Partially sync patterns?
I forget, they changed the name.
I forget the name of it the other day. Yeah, and I had a video because it was supposed to come in 6.5, and I think it's still slated for 6.6 as far as I know. And then I looked at Webflow, and I know they have their component system and stuff like that. And the whole AI thing, people say, oh, we're going to lose maybe this is a good question to end it off. And do you have any particular thoughts on AI in the field of design development? Because I know Mark, again, I keep calling back to Mark. He's talked to me off air before about AI potentially taking all of our jobs. And whenever I use an AI site builder, I'm severely underwhelmed with what it produces. And I know everything's going to get better 6 months, from a year, and 2 years, 10 years. But right now it's severely underwhelming. And I was having this conversation earlier today too. I emailed 3 businesses last week for quotes on something for my house. Nobody got back to me. No one got back to me. They have the email clear right on the website. They tell you email with questions. Nobody got back. I'm not worried about customers using AI to do anything, not yet anyway. They can't even respond to email, right? I'm not worried about them building their own website with AI, because I can't build a website with AI. They certainly can't build a website with AI. They can't even respond to my emails. So there's still humans needed, I think. Your thoughts on AI?
Yeah, that's a whole conversation.
Yeah, that's a whole
for
conversation.
Sure. But I think that you're right in that we're going to require a human touch for a lot of this stuff. And AI is going to come for the lowest hanging fruit, as automation always does for any job. But you need a human to interact with it, and you need a human to interact with the client itself. So we're, I don't want to say that we're all middlemen, but kind of we are. We interpret tech and we interpret client demands and come up with something in between. And AI can't do that yet. And it's going to, as I said, it's going to come for some low hanging fruit for sure. So get better at your craft. And also part of the reason I've changed to, just putting my own name in my website, my name in my YouTube channel, have my face out there now. I guess I got to start recording myself for my videos on camera now. But I'm a human, right? And people connect with that stuff more than more than robots, at least for now.
Yeah, if you don't put your face, people would just think it's just AI generated on your YouTube channel. And
Exactly.
then you have to check it off.
Hey, maybe there's a career there. Maybe I can retire. No.
Don't retire yet. The humans need more humans. Don't leave us just yet.
Yeah, we have to train the robots a little bit more before we retire.
It's Brendan O'Connell. It's Brendan-O'Connell.com, at Brendan O'Connell WP on YouTube. Check him out. Anywhere else folks can go to say thanks?
Those are the best ways. You can follow me on Twitter. I think it's the same handle.
Awesome stuff. Brendan, thanks for hanging out today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate your time. Thanks.